Hello again everyone and welcome back to another video from Old Frames Gaming. I'm your host BK and I want to extend a very humble thank you to all of our new and returning viewers. Your continued support means a lot to me and I'm extremely grateful for all of you. Today's video showcases round 2 of our recent Atog Fest tournament. Typically Atog Fest is held in January, but it was delayed this year due to some weather events in the region. But no worries. 8 players desperate to get out of their houses and take home some sweet, fun prizes descended on Dragon's Den to battle it out. Originally the brainchild of Mark, Team Fog's founding member, Atog Fest is a proxy-friendly Atlantic old school tournament. After all, old school magic is all about fun, and what better way to do so than by slinging some power once in a while. This year featured some really fun decks piloted by some really great players. Next up in round 2 are Colin and the legend himself, Joe Singer of the Orb. Let's get to the decks. Colin showed up ready to destroy hopes and dreams with his mono black rack deck. The main deck has a multitude of ways to rip apart opponents' hands via Hypnotic Spectre, Hymn to Torak, and Mind Twist. And as if that wasn't enough, Disrupting Scepter joins the fray to add repeated discard as well. He's seeking to control his opponent's creatures through Terror and Paralyze, as well as with a trio of Royal Assassin. The remainder of his creature package has some reliable all-stars in Order of the Ebon Hand and Black Knight, both poised to put it to any opponent on white. Colin's powering out these cards early too, with Dark Ritual, Mox Jet, and Black Lotus at the ready. Toss in some Mistress Factories and a full playset of the rack, and you've got yourself a sound strategy. Let's take a look at his sideboard. Colin's sideboard keeps it coming with some additional Terror and Paralyze to destroy or lock down his opponent's creatures. Meekstone is a bit of a role player here too, ensuring that anything with power greater than 2 is out of the action quickly. Pestilence gives Colin a means to destroy multiple creatures or even end the game, with Drain Life performing a similar action. Animate Dead comes in against decks that can play out large creatures fast, that then in turn hit the bin off of Colin's removal. Gloom is yet another tool to punish those white decks. And lastly is Fear, an underutilized card that can help break clogged up board positions against opponents not playing black or artifact creatures. This strategy is tried and true and completely nasty. Now let's check out Joe's deck and see how it matches up. Joe is on a largely white, blue, and green deck with a splash for black and red for a few key cards such as Demonic Tutor, Mind Twist, and Fireball. His strategy is pretty simple. Get ahead with a beater such as Sarah Angel, Serendib Efreet, or Urnum Jin, and then keep the advantage through using board control elements such as Disenchant, Swords to Plowshares, and some counterspells. He's got some fast mana effects via power as well as Soul Ring, and backup beaters in Mistress Factory. Joe is also utilizing Library of Alexandria, Ancestral Recall, and Brain Geyser to keep the cards flowing. This deck has performed well for him historically. But can he pull it off against Colin with his team of pro-white creatures and multitude of discard effects? Let's jump to the video and check out the gameplay. And here we join these players in round 2, game 1. Joe is on the left-hand side of your screen there. He's showing off his opening hand. Colin is going to be on the right-hand side of the screen. Joe has won the die roll here, so he's going to be leading off here momentarily. He's just rearranging some cards and considering his opening plays. Everybody appearing to be in pretty good spirits. And Joe starts us off on Library of Alexandria and tells Colin to go. Colin plays a swamp, but it looks like he may have forgotten to draw a card. So he's going to lead off on Dark Ritual into Black Knight and the rack. So pretty good start for Colin here. If he could just follow that up with some discard and get Joe's hand lower, he would be in some pretty good shape, have a lot of pressure here. So on Joe's turn, he finds a Tundra, an Altered Tundra, and a Mox Emerald, and passes the turn. Colin draws a card, and it looks like he's found a Mistress Factory, which he's going to go ahead and play out. And he's going to come across into the red zone for 2, knocking Joe down to 18. On Joe's turn, he draws a fresh one off the top. And he's debating his next actions. decides to draw another card off of the library there. Looks like he's found a Lotus, everybody. So things could get pretty dangerous for Colin here. So that's going to be 4 mana. Likely a Juzon. Oh, I'm sorry. Not Urnum Djinn, but no, we've opted for a Mind Twist for 3. Which looks like it's going to get the rest of Colin's hand. So Joe passes the turn and Colin finds an Order of the Ebon Hand. But unfortunately for Colin, he can't play it. However, he is going to attack in for 2 here, likely. We're going to animate and then attack. So we're coming across for 4. So Joe is at 14 now, and Colin's still at 20. Joe's continuing to dig with that Library of Alexandria, trying to find an answer. Found another land and passes back to Colin. Looks like Colin may have found a Hypnotic Spectre, but still no way to cast that just yet. So we're going to animate and come back across for 4. Joe finds a Swords to Plowshares. So Colin's going to gain 2 life, but Mistress Factory is going to go away, and Joe is going to go down to 12. And then Colin passes the turn. So Joe draws 1 for the turn, and then another one off of his Library of Alexandria. Still digging for an answer here. With 3 mana available to him, looks like he has found a Serendib Ifrit. Some of Joe's cards are heavily altered, and it can be difficult to determine what they are. And he's also found a Mock Sapphire. That said, a lot of these cards that Joe has are super, super cool altars. Alright, so Colin has found his second swamp and goes ahead and plays out his Order of the Ebon Hand. Joe's going to take 1 off of that Serendib Ifrit and go down to 11. Drawing that second card off of Library of Alexandria. I think we found a Mistress Factory here. And so he's going to come across in the red zone for 3 in the air. So Colin down to 19, but Joe has managed to find an Urnum Djinn. Oh, that was a strip mine, not a Mistress Factory. Okay. Colin finds a second rack. But Joe has got a full grip of cards, so it's going to be a long time before those things are doing any damage here. So Joe's going to take 1 off this Serendib Ifrit, and he's going to go to 10. But he's going to have to get something Forest Walk. These players enjoying themselves here. So here comes Joe across in the red zone for 7 damage. He's found a Soul Ring. So Colin's going to go down to 12. Colin, you might as well get in there while the getting is good. He's going to crack on in for 4. Joe should be at 6 here. We missed the trigger on the Serendib Ifrit. He finds a second card with the Library of Alexandria here. And he's going to send the team. So if these both hit, then Colin is going to go to 5. Well, it looks like Joe is changing his mind here. So Colin going to go down to 8. Joe finds a Mox Jet. 3 mana here. 4/5. Here comes Sarah Angel to the party, as well as a Tundra. So Sarah Angel's not going to be able to block either one of these knights, but unless Colin can find a way to deal all 6 this turn, this game looks like it might be over, and they may be headed for game 2. Colin thinking it over here. I think he's doing the math. He passes the turn. So Joe should be at 4 at this point due to the Serendipity. We found another Mistress Factory. Joe trying to figure out how he can end this game here. So we're going to come in with Urnum Jin as well as the Sarah Angel. So Colin at least going to 4 life this turn. So we're going to go ahead and block Urnum with the order they have in hand, and we're going to go to 4. Alright, so Colin has picked up a Dark Ritual here. Looks like he is going to deploy a Hypnotic Spectre. Joe finds Counterspell, so no, he will not. And looks like Joe's going to come across with the team. That's going to do it for game 1. Good game, fellas. We're going to give these players an opportunity to sideboard, and we will meet them in game 2. And here are our players in game 2 of this round 2 matchup. Colin has opted to mulligan to 6 cards, and he's going to lead off on Swamp into Meekstone. I do not know for certain what Joe may have sideboarded in this matchup because I don't recall getting a picture of his sideboard, but I guess that'll be a surprise for all of us. So Joe leads off on Library of Alexandria again. Luckiest man in the game. Better to be lucky than good, I suppose. But Colin manages to find a Hymn to Torok. So we're going to get a random discard. Joe goes ahead and draws an extra one off of the library. And then Colin is going to get a Tropical Island and a Fireball out of his hand. So with that, Hymn to Torok goes to the graveyard. Joe is going to draw his card for the turn and then get an extra one off that library. So he's right back up to 8 cards. Studying what he should do in this position. That Meekstone going to be problematic for at least Urnum Jin, but not so much for Sarah Angel and not so much for the Serendipity. So Joe opts to deploy Mistress Factory into a Soul Ring and tells Colin to go ahead and go. Colin's sitting on Dark Ritual into Hypnotic Spectre. So he's trying to get that discard action underway. Both these players still at 20 life. Joe continues to churn through his library with that Library of Alexandria. Looks like he has opted to go with Tropical Island. We're going to add 4 mana to the pool, and here comes Urnum Jin. And he passes back to Colin. Colin finds a Mistress Factory of his own. And we're going to add 2 black to the pool and deploy a Black Knight. And come across for 2 in the air and get a random discard. So Joe going to 18 here. And it looks like Colin managed to get his Demonic Tutor. So So Colin passes back and Joe untaps. Looks like he's found strip mine. And Joe just passes on back. Colin finds another Black Knight. Or I'm sorry, he finds another Mistress Factory and then deploys his Black Knight there. So he's assembling the team. Coming across for 2. Going to send Joe down to 16. Going to get another random discard out of this. Looks like a giant slug, I think is what that is actually. Colin adds an Order of the Ebon Hand to the board. And he comes across sending Joe down to 14 and he's going to get one more random discard. Hypnotic Spectre putting in some work. And there goes Brain Geyser. Joe finds Chaos Orb. Here we go. Looks like he is going to try and get rid of this Hypnotic Spectre. And the flip hits, so Hypnotic Spectre is going to the bin. Nice play. So Colin's going to untap and he finds a Disrupting Scepter. Joe pointing out that Black Knight here has Forest Walk. It would appear at least. So Colin's going to go ahead and deploy this Disrupting Scepter. And he's going to come across for 2 because why not? It's free. Joe's going to go to 12. Joe debating on his next move here. And just a pass back. So Colin finds a Terror. That could open some doors here. He's going to attempt to Terror that Urnum Jin. Looks like that is going to resolve. And Colin is going to send the whole team plus a Mistress Factory. So Joe got some strategy here to work out. He's going to go ahead and strip mine that factory, activate and pump his own factory to block one of these creatures. Looks like a Black Knight. So Black Knight hits the bin. Joe takes 4 and goes to 8. Oh, opting to change his mind here. Alright, so Colin left with 2 Black Knights here. Joe finds a Mox Pearl. Joe draws a card, studies for a bit, and then passes back to Colin. Alright, we found another Mistress Factory here. Colin's studying whether or not he might be able to slip some more of his team through here. Joe being at a relatively low life total. Trying to finish this one out. So he's going to send both Mistress Factories and both Black Knights on in. Or one of the Mistress Factories. One of them has Summoning Sickness. So Disenchant finds one Mistress Factory. Black Knight is going to meet its end on Joe's Mistress Factory. And so Joe's going to wind up taking 2 and going down to 6. On his own turn, Joe draws a card, looks at the board state, and passes back. I don't know that there's much that Colin can do here to break this board state. That Mistress Factory is just eating creatures one after another. Looks like Colin has noticed that too, and it looks like he might be reaching for that Disrupting Scepter. So he's going to force Joe to discard a card here of his choosing. He goes with Swords to Plowshares, which is pretty useless against that pro-white guy anyway. Joe goes ahead and disenchants the Disrupting Scepter. And says go. Alright, Colin finds a Royal Assassin. That's a good pickup because if Joe attempts to activate and pump his own Mistress Factory, he can just kill it. Alright, so we found a Dark Ritual here. Probably not going to add much to our hand or the board state with that. So Colin comes on in here with his Mistress Factory and his Black Knight. Joe is going to Swords to Plowshares the Royal Assassin and then activate his own Mistress Factory and block Black Knight. He's going to take 2 and go to 4. Passing the turn back to Joe, who untaps. Quickly passes back to Colin, who finds a swamp and deploys it. Colin's going to sit in a holding pattern right now, it looks like. Well, we may have just found something to break the stalemate. So there's an Order of the Ebon Hand. So that's not going to meet its end on a Swords to Plowshares, and it does have the ability to pump and get first strike. So Colin will have access to up to 6 black mana on his next turn, which likely could be enough to do it. Joe's thinking hard about what he's going to do here. Decides to play a Savannah and a Mox Emerald. And we're going to go ahead and regrowth here. Giant Slug is the play. So that's a 2/4 creature. It has some funny wording about paying some amount of mana when it blocks or your opponent's creature gets first strike. So Joe's basically just putting a big body out there in front of this thing so he can block it for days. Pretty good strategy. These players having a discussion about it, how this card works. Colin finds another swamp and adds it to the board. He decides he's going to come on into the red zone with this Order of the Ebon Hand. Let's see what happens here. Joe thinking about firing up this Mistress Factory. Looks like he does, and blocks with both. We're going to go ahead and make Mistress Factory a 3/3. These two doing some math here to figure out what's going to stay around and what's going to the graveyard. It's like David's come over to help Colin here with his addition and subtraction. I think at the end of the day, this thing is going to go to the graveyard anyway. It's just a matter of what is going with it. So Colin opting to take out the Mistress Factory here. Giant slug remaining on the table. Joe doing a real good job of hiding his hand from us here. Kind of difficult to see what's going on. He ends up passing the turn right back to Colin. Takes a draw. Looks like he's found a Black Knight. He's going to go ahead and deploy that one. Joe's gotten back up to 7 cards, so Library of Alexandria is going to come back into play here. Netting him an extra one every turn. Joe finds a City of Brass. Passes back over to Colin. Colin's found a Hypnotic Spectre. So he's going to go ahead and try to get this one on the battlefield. Joe thinking about this, probably either holding a counterspell or Swords to Plowshares. He's found a counterspell. So Joe going down to 3 life here. Off tapping that City of Brass. Library of Alexandria doing some work here. Alright, we found another Mistress Factory. And just a pass back. Alright, so Colin's found a Paralyze. That could prove pretty useful. But Joe is playing, I think, 3 Disenchant main deck, as well as some counter spells. And this one meets a counter spell. Colin's still over 20 life here, with Joe at 2. Can he find a way to close this out before Joe claws his way back into it? So Colin passes the turn. Joe's going to draw his card as well as an extra one off the Library of Alexandria. Looks like he has managed to find a Black Lotus. And an Ancestral Recall. So Joe going to draw some more cards. Finds a Tundra. And 5 mana. Looks like we may be deploying a Sarah Angel here. That is in fact what we are doing. So Sarah Angel hits the board. unaffected by Meek Stone because it has vigilance. So this is going to be tough. Can Colin find a way to get a terror or paralyze onto this thing before Joe has a way to deal with it via disenchant or a counterspell? So Joe comes on over with Giant Slug. Colin's going to choose to block. Joe deploys a second Giant Slug. There's slugs everywhere. Colin's found a second Meek Stone. Not really going to help us out much here. Joe untapping everything. Drawing extra cards. Almost feels like cheating. Card is so good. Alright, so coming across for 6 damage. Colin going to block that slug again and take 4. Joe using, I can't remember the name of this card, Psychic Purge, I think, to deal that final bit of damage to that Mishra's Factory to get it off the board. Colin finds another Disrupting Scepter. Not what we want to see here. And that's going to find a counterspell as well. So Colin passes back to Joe again. Joe going to send most of his team back into the red zone for 6 more damage. It's going to take Colin down to 11. I guess these guys have decided to back that up, and actually he's going to attack with the entire team and go to 9. So Colin untaps and draws. He finds Soul Ring. Not much help there. Going to go ahead and deploy it anyway, because you never know. Joe untaps. Draws a new one. Got a grip full of cards. Animates Mishra's Factory and comes across with everything. So that's 10 damage he's trying to get across with. So Colin put in a pretty tough spot here. You go ahead and block with Black Knight and, take the 8. Go to 1. Probably his best option here. Looks like he's going to block one of the slugs instead. But Joe says, no, this is a better block for you, so you should probably do this instead. So now Colin goes to 1. And is he going to get him with the Psychic Purge? Looks like it. Alright, so game 2 decided by Psychic Purge. And Joe Singer picking up the 2-0 win in round 2. Thanks for sticking around and watching this. One moment and we will pull up the standings. And here are our standings after 2 rounds of play at Atog Fest. You can see Joe still clinging on to first place here with Chris K in a close second. Shane in 3rd and myself in 4th, with David, Matt, Chris, and Colin rounding out the top 8. Stay tuned for round 3. We appreciate you all tuning in. If you like this kind of content, please hit like and subscribe. It doesn't cost you anything, and it helps with the viewership of our channel. While you're here, be sure to check out the link in the description for The Orb. Head on over and see what Joe Singer's got going on his channel. All kinds of old school good stuff going there. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next round.